Welcome everyone for the day 3 of TAC 2020 conference, and you are in track 1, culture and collaboration. So for this session, the speaker is Nivarti Jairam. Let me give a quick introduction. So he is a Vice President, Head of Transformation, Society General, Global Solution Center, and he is an accomplished leader, ICF accredited career and leadership transformation coach, and a global speaker, service veteran, and an UN peacekeeper with over 19 years of IT experience across industry sectors. And currently he is successfully leading enterprise transformation programs covering digital transformation, infrastructure modernization, business process transformation, payments transformation, agile, DevOps, microservices, and cloud technologies over the past 14 years. So with this, I'll hand over to Nivarti Jairam. You can start.
Yeah, thanks, Raja. So, welcome everyone. It's pleasure to be here as part of Technical Agility Conference. And the talk today that I'm going to present is on creating high performance teams as part of organizational transformations. And if we have imposters within the team, how to address them. So thanks for the introduction again. So I'm Nivarti Jairam, Head of Transformation with Society General, and my upcoming book, Unlearning: The Secret to Better Coaching Engagements, would be out possibly by end of this month. This is the first one of the series of books I'm publishing with my experience of coaching organizations and transforming organizations. So moving on to the topic. So when we talk about high performance team, as part of agile transformation of organizations, we like the organizations to be high performing, and that means it is imperative that we also create teams that are high performing so that the organization as a whole becomes high performing as well. We all know organization is about people, product, and processes. Mostly we address the process part and the product part as part of transformation, but we also need to bring focus on the organizational culture, which is driven more by people and how people interact and engage within an organization. So as part of that, we just wanted to cover on the need to build high performing teams, and if you have certain people who are potentially capable but are not confident about their capabilities themselves, can impact organizations, and what we as leaders and coaches can do to help them. So to start with, what is the definition of a high performing team or an organization? So one of the definitions as per New York Times, it says a team or an organization that is very much focused on achieving its goals and vision, and superior business results can be produced for the organization that it is part of, is a high performing team. Or if the organization as a whole is able to clearly articulate its goals and objectives and is able to achieve consistently, then we call that organization as a high performing organization. Another one of the definitions that we got from Forbes again is a group of people who share a common vision, goals, and metrics, and then collaborate amongst themselves and challenge each other so that they are accountable for consistently achieving outstanding results as a team. So that is something also a definition of high performance teams in organizations. Now, if one team has to be known as a high performing team, then what are the multiple characteristics that we can look at? What are the elements that can define or that can help us understand that, okay, this is the team, or qualify that or validate that this is the team which is a high performing team? The first one, the team should be able to clearly articulate its vision, goals, and objectives. That means they should know what they are doing. They should know what they are expected to achieve and why they are doing it. Many times we know what we are doing, But when you talk to teams and try to understand, do you understand to which organizational strategy or objective you are contributing to, or the delivery that you are making is contributing to, then we don't essentially get the right answers from the team. Their knowledge or vision is primarily limited to their delivery in or the area that they are producing results for. They don't clearly understand the objectives at a tribe level or at a product level or at a portfolio level, and how it contributes to the overall organizational strategy, vision, and objectives. That is something which should be very clear for a high performing team. The second one, the team should be well empowered and should be autonomous. And this is something which is equally contributed not just by the team themselves, but also by the leadership within the team, beyond the team at a tribe level or a product level or even at an organization level. If the organizational leadership is not empowering or is not transformational, then the team cannot be high performing, because the team should be able to make their own decisions, should be empowered to define the how. While the leadership might define the why or what, the how should be able to be defined by the team themselves. So the autonomy and the empowerment of a team plays a very big role in them being high performing. If a team has to depend for every direction or every decision on the leadership, then it is kind of centralized leadership model, which does not help the team to be high performing. So that's the second element for us to look at. Now the third element, the team should be committed and accountable. Even in the definition we saw that the team has to be achieving outstanding business results consistently. If you are not accountable, or if you are not taking ownership and you are not committed to achieve whatever the goals you have defined as a shared objective for your team, because you are empowered to define those, then you will not be known as a high performing team. So it's important that we are committed and we take ownership for what we are delivering as a team. That is the third element. Now, problem solving. Again, the moment you are committed and you take ownership, you do everything within your power to be able to overcome the problems to deliver what is required. When you start looking at somebody else, or you wait for somebody to come and solve your problems, then you cannot be a high performing team, because there is a certain level of delay or dependence on the organizational structure or processes for you to be effective completely to the extent that you can be. So as a team, if you have to be high performing, you should be a team that could solve your own problems. Unanimous decision making, or you can also say shared decision making, which means as a team, once we make a decision, we all stick to the team. And in agile culture, if our mindset, if you talk about, there is a certain element called disagree and still commit. So as a team, many times as a member of a team, it can happen that we don't agree with all the decisions. We don't necessarily be in compliance or in agreement with the decisions we make as a team, but it's okay to put our point across, disagree with what is being made as a decision, but still we commit. Once we commit, then we stay committed. So it's not always required that the decision has to be completely done with 100% agreement, but we should have 100% commitment to the decisions we make as a team. So that is something which is very important for us. And last but not the least, manage conflicts. Again, it's very important to understand each other. That means the team that is high performing, or that can be qualified as a high performing team, should be able to manage conflicts, which means we all members of the team have to be highly emotionally intelligent, to be able to understand each other quite well, and then resolve the conflicts that arise, not have egos within the team. So these are some elements of characteristics that a high performing team should essentially have. Now, coming to the next point as to what are the steps to create a high performing team. Firstly, form smaller teams. Means that is essentially what we call as agile teams, preferably less than 10 members, so that we have a cohesive and a collaborative environment for the team to function. And then number two, provide clear vision and empowerment. Build trust. A lot of people would like to understand what or how to build trust. If you have heard of trust equation, trust is built if you have credibility, which stands for C, reliability and intimacy. If in the team all members have credibility and they bring credibility to the team, that is something which can build trust. If each other, in every member of a team can rely on other person, you can rely on another person to deliver what he or she is committed to, then also that trust, it contributes to building of trust. And intimacy, how intimate we are, how understanding of each other we are, how close knitted we are as a group can build trust, can contribute to building of trust within the team. The biggest, I would say the negative factor in building trust is self-orientation. So always we should try and avoid looking at what's in it for me in everything we do within a team. Our orientation as a team, if we have to be high performing, is to look at what I am doing, how it contributes to the team, and what value can I bring to the team rather than what I am getting from the team. And that is one major negative aspect if you are concentrating on yourself to lack of building trust. So building trust is about credibility, reliability, intimacy, and taking away the self-orientation. That is something which is very important. And fourth one, provide inspirational leadership. So as leaders, if we have to build high performing teams, we have to provide inspirational and transformational leadership. In the next slide, we will see as a leader what we need to contribute. And also as a team and as an organization, we have to focus on team and the dynamics within the team. How cohesive the team is, how collaborative the team is between themselves. Are we seeing some conflicts, or is there a certain element of capability issue or a capacity issue? All those elements have to be looked at in the steps of creating a high performing team. Now, the major factor or a significant factor is the leadership that plays a very big role in creating high performing team. If the leadership is not at a right level of maturity, then we cannot have a high performing teams within the organization. And we look at what elements need to change or what contributions leadership can provide so that we can create high performing teams within the organization. First is identifying the right people with the right attitude, people with right culture, people with right mindset to be part of the team. We all say that skills and competence can be built, but it is very difficult to change the mindset or very difficult to change the attitude of a person. It takes long time to do that. So identifying the right people who are culturally fit, who have the right mindset, who can be collaborative within the team is something as leaders we should look for to bring in if we are trying to build high performing teams. In many organizations, if you go today, the first thing they look for is the cultural fitment, whether you are culturally fit to be part of the team in the first place. I was part of ANZ Agile transformation at an organization level. And we went ahead with the complete restructuring of the teams, which means each and every person was asked to reapply for the roles that they think they would fit for. And the first assessment that we had to go through was whether we have the right mindset to be part of the team itself. So that's where we started. So it is very important to focus on having the people discussed. And the third one, have the right feedback system to provide to the team and also get it from the team. This having the right open and transparent feedback system contributes to taking out the political elements that could negatively impact or bring down the collaboration within the team. So that is something which is very important. We should also look at measuring team performance over measuring individual performance. And this also helps in building better trust within the team than one trying to be superior to another person. So if you have to build a high performing team, that means the team should be able to help each other and bring everybody up to the same potential. That can happen only when you measure team performance than measuring individual performance. Providing empowerment and autonomy is very important element for the leaders. So it is something leadership has to play a very great big role in decentralizing the decision making and not just offload the tasks, offload authority to make those decisions. Many times we see that the leadership is comes and tells us, okay, well, you can go ahead and do this job, but we don't have the right authority to make a decision if we run into an issue while undertaking that particular task or delivering something. So that is something very important. So decentralizing decision making and delegating authority is something which is very important for us to create high performing team. As a leader, we should be able to provide clear vision and objectives for the team so that they can come up with the right way of executing and delivering what is intended. And we all should be servant leaders if we have to build high performing teams. That means we are more facilitators in a conversation, facilitate conflict management for the team, facilitate capability build for the team. All those elements facilitate the right environment so the team can grow themselves. That is something we should be able to contribute as leaders. Last but not the least, psychological safety. Provide room for innovation, provide room for learnings, not failures, because we should look at every failure as a learning. So providing that psychological safe environment where people can fail, people can learn, look at failure more as a learning. So how we celebrate failures than ridicule them can help us, the high performing teams, to be created or built or even sustained in the long run. That is something which is very, very important. So these are elements of creating high performing teams and what it constitutes, and also how organization or leaders can play a role in creating those. Now, moving to the important element that could adversely affect the high performing team. That is something called as imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. What is imposter syndrome? And imposter syndrome is not something that came up today. It has been existing from long ago, and at every point in life or in some situation, each and every one of us act like imposters. Now, what is imposter syndrome? It can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. That means there is a certain feeling that I don't belong to this particular place, even though I have succeeded, in this particular role for a long time. We might associate it to something as luck or contribution by the team or everything that has contributed for us to succeed except ourselves. And that is the feeling sometimes we have in different areas of our life or diverse areas of our life. Another definition, Jeff Watts, again in his book called The Coach's Casebook, which is a very great book for any agile coach or even agile team member to refer to. He talks about the feeling that we are not as good as others think and that we will be found out on any given day is also known as imposter syndrome, which means we ourselves, it's all self-doubt about our own capabilities, our own potential, our own ability to deliver. This is something which is effectively known as a imposter syndrome. Now let's look at what is the mindset the imposters will have, what goes on in their mind, how they think, if for us to be able to identify whether somebody is an imposter. That means somebody is not able to fully understand or be confident of his potential itself. The first one is fear of failure. Because they are not confident, see, for even to fail, you need to have confidence about yourself that, okay, I am ready to fail, but I will learn from this and grow. It is very important to have that confidence in yourself, your ability to overcome failure. Only then you will not fear failure. But these people who have that kind of imposter syndrome always fear failure because they are not even confident about their capability itself. The failure will again bring push them further down in the levels of imposterity. That is why they fear failure a lot. That is the first critical mindset of somebody being an imposter. Second, they have a feeling that they don't deserve appreciation. That means they don't feel, even if you go and say this is a great job done, they will feel that, okay, today they are appreciating me. What if tomorrow they find out I am not as capable as they think I am? So it's again the self-doubt that comes in. So they always feel that as individuals, they don't deserve the appreciation for the effort that they make or for the results that they produce. This is another element of people being imposters. They attribute everything to luck. Even if they have succeeded in the most critical of environments or most complex deliveries as an individual, they still put it on luck. Okay, everything collaborated or everything fell in place for me to be successful, and they don't attribute it to their capability or what they have done. So that is another element which we have to be very conscious about when we look for imposters. This is another thing. So everything luck or the effort done by the people around them rather than themselves is looked at as the primary contributor for your success. And that is another element aspect these people have in mind, that I am not capable, but I am succeeding because the team is succeeding, or I am succeeding because somebody helped me at the right moment for me to succeed. Otherwise, if left alone to do something, I will not be as successful because I lack this capability to succeed. So that is something also very important for us to look at. They mostly are silent in conversations because they fear being ridiculed. They are not open to be vulnerable. So that is something which is very evident from somebody being an imposter. Somebody can be very wise as well who is silent, which is another extreme. But mostly people who are imposters, they try not participating in any conversations. They try to stay silent in a lot of conversations that we have within the team or within the organization. So these are certain mindsets that people who are imposters bring to the table. Now, what is the impact of having imposters within the team? How it can affect a high performing team if we have imposters within the team? Because they are not confident about themselves, their deliveries could be impacted. What is their commitment? They might be very fearful even to commit. That means they are underperforming. And with having people who are underperforming to their potential will bring down the value proposition of the team itself. not just the individual. So that is something which we should be conscious about. It is a negative impact that could have on the team. Again, we talked about credibility, reliability within the team to build trust. If somebody you don't find reliable, that okay, whatever task is given to that person, whatever role that person has to play, whatever responsibilities that person has, if he or she is not in a state to fulfill those responsibilities, then that will impact the trust within the team. And if the trust is impacted, then there is no way you can have a high performing team. What that means, if you have people who lack trust, who do not bring right value proposition, the whole engagement factor within the team goes for a toss. And it mostly results in the high performing people leaving the team, because they like to be part of the team which is consistently achieving results, which is consistently delivering value to the customers who are outperformers. So that having imposters in the team might result in the high performing talent leaving the team. So that is something also to look at. The delivery predictability of the team also goes down. Of course it has to happen. It's a logical outcome from having people who cannot be relied upon to deliver what they are committed to. So these are some things which come out as impacts if you have imposters within your team. Now, being the leaders in the team, being a coach, agile coach, or being a scrum master that is associated with the team most of the times, what is that we can do? How we can help these people having imposter syndrome on how to overcome? First is to create awareness. A lot of people don't understand what imposter syndrome is. They don't even realize that they are imposters. That means they don't understand that they are acting in such a way that is impacting the team negatively, and also that their capabilities are well recognized and substantiated. So they don't even are aware that they are acting like imposters. So first step is to create awareness. Now, how you can do that? One of the elements you can look for is doing a 360-degree feedback, because people with imposter syndrome need that reassurance or reinforcement continuously, so that they can start slowly overcoming that, slowly understanding and realizing or building awareness of their own potential. So having a 360-degree feedback, getting the right kind of inputs which showcase the capabilities of the person, can definitely influence in people trying to overcome their imposter syndrome. Another good element that we could do, or tool we could use, is journaling. Journaling is a very positive element which can provide reinforcement through self. That means if you ask that person every day, try to put down what positive contributions you have done to the team. Every day, what is the small contribution that you have done to the team, which starts building the confidence on his capabilities or her capabilities to deliver or to bring value to the team, to realize, to build that awareness, be conscious on day-to-day basis about what they bring to the table, how they have helped somebody overcome certain issues. These elements come out through journaling. So every day, if you start asking those kind of people to go back and write down at the end of the day what positive contributions they made to the team, that can be very reinforcing to their confidence, reinforcing to their capabilities, which could help them overcome that. And again, have one-to-one conversations, mostly because they would be silent in the team conversations or group conversations. This is best addressed in a one-to-one meetings with the team member. So this is something you can have as a coach, as a leader, or as a scrum master. Look out for opportunities or create opportunities to have one-to-one conversations and keep highlighting what positive elements they bring to the table, what you have seen in them, what differentiators they bring, what is the uniqueness within themselves that they are bringing to the table. This could be very helpful in them coming out with out of this imposter syndrome. And the last thing, keep looking out for the hippo effect when the team conversations are happening. It always happens that mostly the highly outspoken individual or even highly impactful or influential person always keeps talking. And as coaches, as leaders, as scrum masters, we need to be vigilant, we need to be present and be aware, be conscious of who is not speaking, and try to give them opportunities, sometimes even try to push them to be part of the conversations, to bring their views. Even a small agreement or disagreement to a certain proposition made can be a very good start. So we need to watch out for this hippo effect within the team and keep looking out or keep creating opportunities for the imposters within the team to be able to highlight or to be able to contribute what they bring to the table, what is their point of view, and help them overcome this. So imposter syndrome, while it is very invisible, it could very adversely impact the individual and also the organization. So it is very important to be on the lookout for people with this imposter syndrome, and it is not something which you cannot come out of, but having that awareness is the first step. As cultural transformation plays a very significant part in organizations being successful in their transformation journey and also sustaining the transformation outcomes that we always look for. And transformation is something which goes on continuously. So it is imperative we have high performing teams, and it will happen that we will have one or two members who are having or who are impacted by this imposter syndrome. That is why we thought it's very significant to highlight this and build awareness within the community to be able to identify these people and help them to realize their full potential. I think that's all I have. So you can connect with me on my personal website or on LinkedIn, and we can have more conversations on various aspects, whether limited to imposter syndrome or any other elements of transformation. I'm done with my session. Any questions that we have
Yeah.
which we like to take
Yes,
up?
yes, Jairam, we have some questions. Let me read out for you. So give me a minute. So the first question is, some team members will be in that area of self-motivation or orientation. How can we deal with that team members?
Yes, there will always be self-orientation, so the certain element, but what we need to look for is it impacting the team? That is number one. Number two, self-orientation also comes through the where we are brought up, the environment that we have created, or the earlier organizations where we have worked, because not every organization is agile. So we have people coming in from different parts of the world, coming into from different cultures. So self orientation is something which you would see in people. That is where creating shared objectives and measuring team performance versus measuring or rewarding individual performance is a great step in helping people to be more looking at what we as team are delivering. And the leadership also should look at not looking at individual contributions and look at overall holistic view of how the team is contributing. That is something which can definitely help overcome self orientation. And mostly the reward system needs to change in organizations for us to really move from self orientation to team orientation. That is something which we should really look for, how you reward people as a team and then let them be autonomous to distribute or identify who are the key contributors, and how they can bring in value as a team. And major element, another aspect is whenever an issue arises, most of the time we focus on who has created that issue than why that issue came up. So it could, if you are focusing on who has created that issue, automatically you are promoting self-orientation rather than looking at the issue as a problem. You are looking at a person as a problem. That is another element we can probably take out as a team or as a leader. Look at what has gone wrong than who has done wrong. That is another thing I would recommend.
Okay. So thank you. So next two questions are slightly related to rewards and feedback. So first question is how appraisal cycles can be taken care when we are doing team performance measurement. And next question is similarly, I mean, it's related to this. So the next question is how often do you take the feedback or measure the team's performance? Do you use any tools or did you design a survey?
Okay, I think we are still maturing in that journey as an organization to look at team performance. So this year we have the awards where we had team of the year, and of course we had the leader of the year as well, even employee of the year. But we started with team of the year awards this year. So which means we are trying to slowly move away from recognizing individual performance to team performance. So how you motivate people to be looking at complete team as an providing value or delivering outcomes is something you can look for. Now, how frequent should be the feedback? I think it's again dependent on the maturity of the team and the journey they have as an individuals. That means if the team is frequently changing, then your feedback loop has to be much shorter. If it is a stable team that is continuously performing, you are more empowering them to have that feedback within themselves. That means how you as a leader can facilitate that conversation within the team. If you take one example, if somebody comes and tells you that, okay, as a manager or as a leader or even as a scrum master in the team, I have a problem with X person, the moment they are coming to you than going and talking to the person means that there is lack of trust between themselves. Now, how you as a coach or a leader or as an individual scrum master look at that, instead of trying to just resolve the issue, we should also look at parallelly trying to understand what is creating that lack of trust within the team is something we have to think about. These elements can contribute to building or taking out even the earlier element of self orientation and moving to overall team performance and team rewards.
Okay, fine. So the main question is, do you use any tools or any surveys to take feedback or measure team's performance?
Team's performance will be quite visible when you are looking at what they are delivering in the context of commitment. So if the delivery predictability is higher, that means the team performance is higher. We don't necessarily compare team performances based on velocity or something. We don't even measure velocity because velocity can be impacted by a lot of elements: business participation, how many people are in the team, how many contributors, what is the capacity of the team at certain given point in time. So all those elements could be something which we can impact velocity. So business value delivered is something which we really look for. Delivery predictability is another one. So these are the two things which we look at very closely, measuring team performance.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, can you share your thoughts on the role played by a people leader, coach, scrum master on realizing and dealing with imposter syndrome?
I think I did cover in the last slide. So it's very important for coaches because our scrum masters are leaders. First thing is to identify that somebody has this element of imposter syndrome and then start creating that awareness, reinforcing their capability to deliver, reinforcing their importance in the team, reinforcing their abilities and what uniqueness they bring to the table, what contributions they are making as individuals, and why we value their presence in the team. That continuous reinforcement, positivity, and even in retrospectives, you can ask the help of other team members to highlight and be vocal about the contributions of these people, which can build that confidence levels and reinforcement of their capabilities. So as a coach, you can do a lot of things. As a scrum master, as a leader, you have a very big role to play in helping these people overcome that imposter syndrome and really contribute to the best of their potential, which they have. It's not that they lack potential. They have the potential. It's only the belief of that potential they have, which we have to create as coaches or leaders.
Okay. So, I mean, a question linked to this, have you come across where majority of the team members is having imposter syndrome?
That's a very good question. So it might happen. It's a potential or a hypothetical possibility, but then your team would not be high performing. So you will again look at whether there is complete lack of trust or reliability within the team. That is something you have to really look for. I have not so far come across as a team where every individual is having this in at the workplace. So there could be other elements where they feel themselves to be imposters, but not at workplace. There could be one or two people in a team that we look out and we try to address, but not like majority of the team members or in such fashion.
Okay. So, thanks, Jairam. So, next question is, if we always measure team performance, how will leadership be able to recognize key contributors?
I think we need to move away from that key contributors, kind of structure itself. We all talk about flat hierarchies as part of agile organizations. That means the growth is more on your field of expertise, how you grow in your domain, how you grow in your technical excellence. So focus is more on growing your domain expertise or depth of knowledge in the field that you are working on than thinking about hierarchical growth. In many organizations now, we have careers for expertise within the system than just management roles. That means we have people who are developers and who want to be developers for 15-20 years. It does not mean they don't grow in the organizations. They grow as technical leaders within the organization, but they still want to contribute to be in the development hands-on, because that is what they get a high from. So essentially, probably in the Indian context, we look at growth or recognition from growing hierarchically, being called a manager or being called a VP or something like that, rather than being known for your expertise within a certain domain or certain technology or even certain business aspect. So I think we need to move away from that kind of growth proposition or looking at that as the validation of our contribution, rather to move towards looking at growing our depth of expertise.
Okay. So, thank you. Next question is, how team performance is related to team's maturity?
That's again a good question. So as the team matures, see, we all understand, I don't know how many people realize that human mindset is looks like an iceberg. If you have seen the mindset formation of a human, that means we all start from what we are doing and then slowly move downwards to the who we are. And the more we define and understand who we are in a team, the more critical or strong beliefs that we start uncovering, which kind of limit us in our conversations or developing relationships. So as the team gets more mature, you start looking or you start realizing the lower levels or stronger belief systems within your team members, which could bring in that much stronger challenges to overcome as well. So the team performance is a reflection of the dynamics within the team, and the dynamics are positively or negatively impacted based on the maturity journey they go through of understanding each other within the team and how they are able to overcome certain limiting beliefs each one brings to the table, and helping each other, how much they trust each other. So that is how the maturity of the team can influence the performance of the team.
Okay. So next two questions are slightly related. Let me read out the first one. What if a team gets small lived projects rather than working in continuous flow of product, and there are 1 to 2 people each project in parallel executed in Scrum? How do you motivate them and maintain a one team feeling? So next question is related to this. How to motivate people in a high performing team which can long last?
Okay, so first question, I think if you have a team that is very short-term oriented, but still if you build the mindset of people to go wherever they are and still look at that particular team from a team point of view than looking at individual point of view. It's all about the mindset. Self-orientation to team orientation does not always depend on the kind of people you work with. It's how you are rewiring yourself in the whole journey. So if you are able to do that successfully in one team, you can always bring the same mindset to another team as well. A person who has built an agile mindset in an agile organization, even if you take that person in, put him or her in a complete waterfall team or an organization, they would still exhibit that mindset of being agile. They would still exhibit an ability to try and deliver things faster or look for ways to deliver value and challenge the status quo. So if the mindset is built right as part of the high performing team, I think you will be able to build that more easily, whether it is short term collection of people or is a long term collection of people. And it answers also the second question. If you have to sustain teams to be high performing, then you have to build the right mindset and right culture within the individuals who are part of that team.
Okay. So last question. So this question is, if a team member believes that he or she is already organized, doesn't need a team leader for them, how do a leader handle this situation?
That's a good thing, but if it is just one individual, then you have to probably challenge that individual and help that individual understand from that person as to why he or she feels the way that person is feeling. And if that whole team feels that they don't need a leader, that's a perfect place to be in. That means you have succeeded as a leader to make yourself dispensable. You have delegated every decision to the team so that they feel there is no need for your contribution, which is perfectly fine. But if it is one individual, that means we have to understand whether that individual is trying to become a leader of the team. Is that person trying to impose upon others within the team? That is something we have to look for.
Okay. So since we have only 1 more minute, let me take a last question. So how team will move gradually towards growth mindset?
Again, I think there is no 100% growth mindset person in the world. Okay, we all have certain fixed mindset in certain area of our life. Now, at workplace, how you can continuously be growth minded, that depends on, again, leadership, how we look at people, and organization, how empowering the organization is, how much we are able to provide opportunities for people to grow themselves. When I say grow, again, not just in hierarchy, but to achieve whatever their full potential is. That is something which, as leaders and organizations, if we can facilitate that, then people will be in that mindset of continuously being growth minded. But there is no person who can say that, okay, I am 100% growth mindset. That I have not seen anybody so far. We all will be having certain fixed mindset in certain aspects of our life or certain practices of our life, but at workplace or majority you can think about being growth minded. So that is something we can definitely look for.
Okay, so I think that's all. Thanks to all the participants who has joined this track, and thanks Jairam for providing us great insights on creating high performance teams. It's a great
Okay,
session.
thank you everyone. Have a great time. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so participants, the next session is starting at 5:55. You can join any of the three tracks. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.